Welcome to The Kingdom, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics and a land defended by Sir Ross's Knights. Now here's your host, Rocco Geppi.
Hello Knights Nation, Rocco Geppi here for the Kingdom Podcast. I hope you are well and staying safe. We are heading into winter break here in the Kingdom. So today, Season 2, Episode number 11, will be our final episode of 2020, and we have a good one for you. Correspondent Rebecca Plantholt and intern Demetrius Anderson are back to bring us news from men's and women's men's and women's track and field as it will be this season. To lead things off, here is Rebecca with head cross country and track and field coach Noah Hutton.
Rebecca Plantholt for the Kingdom. Today I'm joined by heads men and women's cross country coach Noah Hutton. Welcome. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Noah.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Of course. So for those who might not know, cross country was one of the fall sports that the NJCA decided to remain in the fall for their competition. So this year we've decided to do a little something different with the running program that we have here. So can you kind of share with us what that change is here and how you go about transitioning from cross country to our new endeavor for this year?
Yeah, it was a very interesting transition because it was a slow process over time. And so the athletes were working really hard for cross country. We thought we were going to be a top 10 team in the nation on the guys' side. The girls, we thought we were going to repeat. And they actually still had a season in terms of NGCAA cross country in general. And there was not a single women's team in all of Maryland or Region 20 Division 2. So it's kind of disheartening because we would have automatically won for the girls. And I know we would have had 6 or 7 girls. And then on the guys' side, Hagerstown had a very competitive team this year. So I don't know if we would have beat them, but we definitely would have came in second place. And I think we would have had a chance to be between that 5th to 10th spot in the nation, which would be a big jump from the previous year. And so when CCBC decided no longer to run cross country for the year, but it was still happening in other schools in the area, it was very disheartening for the athletes. So I just tried the best I could to kind of swing it and look at it as more of an opportunity. In the past, we've done little practices during the spring, but our attendance isn't the highest just because people work. A lot of the people on our team, they work full time. And during the spring, they usually try and work a little extra to make up money. So we're happy to have 5 or so athletes each practice during the spring. So I said, if we have a full track season, that gives us a whole nother opportunity to qualify for nationals and show how good of an athlete you are in a different situation. And a lot of our athletes are not experienced in track, so doing the shorter distances could potentially help to make them more competitive at the larger scale in terms of nationals, Maryland region, and that kind of thing. And that also means that athletes who participate in track, they're going to be a lot more prepared for cross country versus if they didn't have a track season and they were just trying to build up their base over the summer to prepare for cross country. So we tried to swing it more as an opportunity, even though it was a little disheartening.
Of course. And so now we're taking a look and we're going to focus on being the track and field team this year instead of a cross country team. Did that affect recruitment any? Did we kind of do standard operating procedures? How did we get a group of kids to be out there and running every day?
Well, I mean, it's not an issue of switching from cross country to track and field. The real issue is COVID-19 and just the impact it's had on recruitment, on retention, everything. Top to bottom, it has forced us to think outside the box and get creative on how we do everything. That's the big impact is trying to find a way to retain athletes who are trying to overcome so much currently. And then in terms of recruitment, it's extremely hard to recruit when there is no competitions in the area from pretty much mid-February all the way till now. There hasn't been too many. There's only been a handful of competitions. So unlike other sports where there's established club programs that compete on a regular basis that you can use as a recruiting pool, there isn't really that for track and field and cross country. A couple counties in the area have created kind of like running clubs, and a few high schools have hosted some meets. So I've gone to a few of them. But the issue is, because it's not full teams participating, a lot of times it's just random athletes. You get really two levels of athletes. You get the athletes that are training year round and are doing all the right things, and all of them are mostly looking at 4-year school. So I'm still talking to coaches, trying to get athletes interested. But the ones who are running through a pandemic are usually have good enough grades and are dedicated enough that they're looking beyond community college and looking at 4-year schools. And then a lot of the other ones, they just aren't following through with their training to a level where they'd be competitive enough to really contribute to the program right away. And if we're going to recruit heavily on an athlete, it's somebody that we hope can be competitive right away. With that said, like I said, we've gotten very creative in our recruiting strategy. So we've had a lot of luck with getting athletes from Dundalk, and one of the Dundalk coaches, the head coach there, Kevin Tran, recommended, why don't you reach out to this school? I think they have this really fast sprinter who just happens to be coming to CCBC. He graduated a couple years ago. You might get lucky and he might still be there. So then I spent multiple days reaching out to every single coach in Baltimore County, every high school coach, and trying to find athletes to the best of my ability. I probably sent emails to between 20 and 30 different coaches. Within 2 weeks, I had 5 to 10 athletes who were ready to jump on board with Essex. The thing that was made recruiting even more interesting is the area that we had the most luck was actually throwing events. So I'm a distance coach by nature, and that's where all my experience is. But at the high school level, I've coached track and field, and I coach whatever we need. So I've coached pole vault, I've done a little bit of shot put, I've done high jump, long jump, triple jump, and I can get by in terms of high school athletics because a lot of them don't have a lot of experience. But with the numbers of throwers that we have that are interested in competing at Essex, and a lot of them were competitive at the county level and semi-competitive at the state level, it looks like I might be learning a new skill set to coach some throwers come this spring, which I'm excited for the challenge.
And this is a great segue. So how did fall practices look, knowing that we'd be going towards this? And obviously you've got some research to do and some training, but how do you transition a group of kids that are typically a long distance runner to the different lengths of running they're going to be doing, and then that possibility they might also be able to do some field events this year?
So with this fall, just with all the unknown and uncertainty, and we decided still to run cross country more, or this fall more like a cross country season, and focus more on workouts and still focus on these distant workouts. And then we shifted it and had some small groups work on more speed and different things that would be more for sprinters or mid distance. And the big thing that we really pushed this fall, which our attendance was really good, considering everything. We averaged about 10 athletes a practice, which is solid considering the numbers, considering not knowing anything. And a lot of athletes weren't even taking classes in person. Everything was online. So they were coming up to the school literally just to practice. So we were pretty happy with the numbers. And we just told everybody, you need to think about this as the start of your track season. So no matter what event group you are in, what you're focusing on, your first task is to get in shape. So we use the fall as a way to get into shape and to kind of push the athletes. So a lot of athletes didn't train as much this summer as we would have hoped, and a lot of athletes trained really hard. And then when they realized that we weren't doing cross country, a lot of them stopped and didn't run for a month straight. So there was a lot of challenges to overcome in terms of changing the mindset of the athletes, getting them mentally prepared, and kind of beating up their bodies and challenging them without injuring anybody in the process. So we really just worked on mindset, getting in shape, how hard we have to work, how you need to be doing stuff to prepare, because come when we start practice, they need to be in shape so that way we can divide up between different coaching groups and we can work on specific techniques and specific event groups, and it will get a lot more personalized. But we can't do any of that if the athletes are out of shape. There's not enough time in a track season to get you in shape, teach you technique, and also work on the skills and the nuances of racing a race or doing a field event. So that was really the big take-home message. Like, we understand that this is all challenging, but if you want to get to where you want to go, if you want to succeed this spring, you're going to have to put in the work this off season in order to get prepared so we have time to really get you to the next level.
Sorry to interrupt the interview, folks, but we are up against our first break. We'll have part 2 of Rebecca's interview with Noah Hutton right after this.
Let's talk about college.
Times have changed.
We've changed.
I refuse to accept an education that comes with a mountain of crippling debt.
No longer will I stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me.
I will not confuse a fancy name for a quality education. Sorry, Pops.
Let's talk practical.
Let's talk flexible.
Let's talk smart education.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online at ccbcmd.edu and see what you can be.
Welcome back. Rocco Geppi with you here, the Kingdom Podcast, Season 2, Episode number 11. Now let's get you back to part 2 of Rebecca Plantholt's interview with Noah Hutton.
Of course, you've mentioned there's plenty of uncertainty. So this is new for all of us, kind of new for you as well. But what's that spring season going to look like when we get into a season of just how they're going to go about competing in a sense? Because usually we're used to them just going to a start line. There's the starting pistol and then everybody runs. It's a little different with track and field. So how's that going to look? And then I think the viewers would love to know, like, what's the one thing you're looking forward to the most about all of this, since this is a totally new experience?
There's a lot of challenges in there. We typically have a quarter of our team have never ran track and field or cross country. They've been cut from other sports at Essex. They got to college and decided to start participating in something. So we have a lot of athletes who have zero track experience. So really, when it comes down to the actual meet schedule, it is very different than cross country. And cross country, like you said, you just tell them, hey, do your normal warm up, show up to the line and run the best you can. And that's the end of the story. In terms of collegiate track and field, what's going to be a big shift for even these athletes who do have experience, you have maybe one or two opportunities to meet, and that is it. So in high school, a lot of times the athletes that get to the next level, they're your best athletes. So they're running 3 or 4 events every single meet, and they're not running. I mean, they're trying their hardest, but when you go from high school to college, the competition is so much greater that it takes so much more energy and willpower to run the event to the best of your ability that you don't have as much energy to do multiple events. And it leads a bit bigger PRs if you do it properly, but it's also really easy to kind of wear yourself out very quickly. So one thing we're going to have to do right from the beginning, and that's where we don't have a lot of time, we kind of set up a schedule in mind. With that said, like I said, COVID-19 numbers have made a lot of the coaches say, hey, you know, we have this on here, but we don't know really what's going to happen. We're going to contact everybody in January, February to update them and let them know about the logistics. But the plan that we have set in place as of right now, based on the schedules that are on the meets and have not been officially canceled and things like that, is that we're going to start competing pretty much from mid-January or mid-March, and we'll have 3 meets in a row, and then we'll take a meet off, and then we'll have 3 meets in a row, and that's about it. And then it's, if you hit a national qualifying time and do 6 meets, that's it. The other big shift, as you mentioned, is just like that whole idea of just showing up to the line and just running the best you can, because there's only 1, maybe 2 races for each gender. It's not as complex. And some of the meets are smaller. So we usually traditionally start off the season with a smaller meet, so that way the athletes are kind of slowly opened up to these bigger meets. When you come to track and field, there's not as many meets in the area. So it's not one of these things where we can really start off with smaller meets. There's 1 or 2 that if they happen, if COVID numbers don't impact things too much, they will be kind of a slowly gradual warm-up period, because it'll only be 5 to 10 teams there versus the 10 to 50 at some of the other meets that we're going to. But it is going to be really big on the athletes to help each other pay attention to the time, pay attention to the running events, pay attention to when they should warm up, when they should cool down. Because as a coaching staff, we'll do the best we can. And we have a really good coaching staff that I'm really excited about. We might have as many as 4 or 5 coaches coaching this spring, just kind of based on how availability falls out. And so we'll be helping them along the way. But at some of the meets, we might have athletes in back-to-back-to-back events for an hour or two straight, and we won't be able to tell them these things because we're going to be watching our other athletes compete. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing as a coach is to watch the race, let the athletes know what we saw because they can't see what's happening in their own race. And it's the athlete's responsibility, especially at the collegiate level, to get ready for the race on their own. So one thing that we kind of did to help put the athletes in a position to succeed is we try to group the athletes up a little bit more. So one area that doesn't necessarily always have the highest competition compared to other events is steeplechase. There's not a lot of people crazy enough to run a steeplechase. So we've tried to group a lot of our athletes into that event. So that way, one, they can help keep each other in check to say, hey, we should be warming up. We should be cooling down. We should be doing this. And it won't be all on an individual athlete. It'll be a group of athletes working together to accomplish the same goal. That's another reason why I'm super excited for throwing. We have 3 guys who are extremely excited for throwing. They're all pretty accomplished. I've thrown over 100 feet in the discus, and one of them's thrown, I think, over 44 feet in the shot put. So they're going to push each other. They're going to challenge each other. So the big thing that I am most excited about is to see which athletes actually step up, come into the season in shape, and then which ones continue to grind and overcome all the adversity that we've overcome this last year in order to be successful. And hopefully we'll have 2 to 3 athletes qualify for nationals. That is the goal this year.
We look forward to seeing what the athletes can do and maybe getting a couple out there to nationals, like you just said. I want to thank you, Noah, for your time today and for giving the viewers of the Kingdom a little bit to look forward to about this special spring that we have coming up here.
Thank you. I was excited to continue to push CCBC cross country and track and field out there. We're starting to get a little recognition and people are starting to hear our name. So we're trying to spread as much as possible.
Absolutely. And we're going to keep that going through the future as long as we can. For Noah Hutton, I'm Rebecca Plantholt. Now back to you, Rocco.
All right, folks, that was correspondent Rebecca Plantholt with head cross country and track and field coach Noah Hutton. And we heard Noah talk about a lot, but one thing that sticks out to me in that interview is how committed he is to making Knight's men's and women's cross country and track and field one of the best in the nation. We're up against our final break. This is just a 15-second break, and when we return, intern Demetrius Anderson talks to Sam Smith in our Fresh Faces segment. You're listening to the Kingdom Podcast, a podcast dedicated to CCBC Essex Athletics.
Times have changed, and I will not stay stuck in a job because college has no time for me. I will not let a limited schedule limit me.
Rethink what's possible with CCBC. Visit us online and see what you can be.
Welcome back. I'm Rocco Geppi. Thank you for continuing to listen and or watch this week's episode. Now it's time for our Fresh Faces segment. This week, Sam Smith here on the Kingdom Podcast.
Hi, my name is Demetrius Anderson here for the Kingdom Podcast, and today I'm here with CCBC Essex cross country and track student athlete Sam Smith. Sam, thank you for your time and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yep, no problem, Sam. No problem at all. Thank you. So, just to get started, what is your pregame ritual?
What was the question? My audio cut out for a second.
What is your pregame ritual?
I like to listen to music.
Oh, okay. So it's like isolation before you run, basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, isolation.
Yeah. All right. Just moving on. Why did you choose this CCBC specifically?
I chose CCBC because it would help save me money, and it was close to my house.
Okay.
Plus, the coach recruited me, came to one of my meets, and talked to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. I definitely understand that, especially with the coach coming and physically coming and watching you run, that shows commitment, and effort and them seeing that, showing that they see something in you. So that's good. The next question is, what is one personal sporting memory that you will never forget?
I remember the bull run. And it was just fun, just all the people there. Also New York Nationals. That was a fun experience. just everyone running and just having fun while they ran too.
Right. How many days were y'all there?
In New York, we were there for 2 days. I
Okay.
think.
Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty fun. Okay. Well, where'd y'all run at? The location?
It was Van Cortlandt Park
Okay.
in the Bronx, I think.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right. So just move aside from, just athletics part. What is your favorite TV show?
I like the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian?
Like
Okay.
Yeah,
So is that like connected to DC?
that's it's Star Wars.
It's Star Wars. I'm sorry too. Yeah. Okay. I don't
Yeah.
even. All right. So I know with the pandemic going on and so forth, a lot of people, their activities and so forth that they normally would do over the summer, was canceled because of everything being shut down. So what did you do this summer to occupy your free time?
I started biking a lot, so
Okay.
I would go like everywhere. I'd ride up to Pennsylvania from my house. That was fun.
Okay. Or is it your first time you new to biking or?
I mean, this is the first time like I biked like longer distances.
Okay.
Like when I was a kid, I'd just like bike up and down the street, but
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So, just regards to your academics, what is the career path you're interested in pursuing?
I'm interested in environmental science.
Oh, okay. Well, that's tough. Really tough. Okay. Yeah. I don't respect you because I don't see myself with that degree at all. So that's good.
Yeah.
And then just to wrap this up, how many sports did you play prior to college?
When I was a kid, I did soccer, but in high school, it was just cross country and track.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, that just shows your dedication, commitment, and experience with running. So I know CCBC, Essex Athletics, they're, definitely happy to have you. So that's good. So that's all we have for you, Sam. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
For my guest, Sam Smith, I'm Demetrius Anderson. Now back to you, Rocco.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Podcast. Thank you, Demetrius. Great job on that interview with Sam Smith. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's a wrap for Season 2, Episode number 11, our final episode of 2020. Make sure you follow us on social media. We're at CCBC Essex Sports on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook and YouTube, both of which are important because that's where you're going to find these podcast episodes. Just keyword search CCBC Essex Athletics. And make sure you visit us online at ccbcessexknights.com. All of our social media links are also in the description of this episode. My thanks again to Rebecca Plantholt and Demetrius Anderson, our correspondent and intern. Thank you also to this week's guests, men's and women's head cross-country and track and field coach Noah Hutton and cross-country and track student-athlete Sam Smith. For those of you that have already celebrated, happy belated Hanukkah to you and your families, and to the rest of you, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy New Year. I'm Rocco Geppi, thanking you one last time for joining us on the Kingdom Podcast in 2020. We'll see you in 2021. So long.